The company said it plans to buy back $10 billion of its shares over the next year. 12 months.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on?
GM, we were talking about GM over in Spring Hill converting 125 employees to permanent status from temporary status, and how this is really going to be a life-changing situation for dozens of workers in Tennessee. And we've actually got a interview scheduled with one of those newly permanent employees and the president of the local union, UAW Local 1853, that I'm looking forward to bringing y'all. And so that's a really feel-good story about GM. Here's a really feel-bad story about GM. Stock buybacks. They have announced recently a new stock buyback program. And, what stock buybacks, functionally what those do is inflate the, they inflate the stock price by decreasing the amount of stocks that are on the market, right? So that kind of makes sense. If I'm a company and I have 100 stocks and each stock is $10, if I buy back 10 of those stocks for $100, then there's only 90 stocks left on the market. And so each one of those stocks is going to be worth a little bit more, supply and demand kind of thing. So it's market manipulation a little bit. And it was before Ronald Reagan illegal to do that. But that's what stock buybacks are. And it's meant to increase stock prices. The reason that GM wants to increase stock prices is because after the UAW contract and during the negotiations and during the strike, the GM stock price has been falling. And so this has created some concern among the executive class at GM. And so they want to increase the stock prices so that the shareholders, continue to make money and they continue to elect the CEO to be CEO. And it's really kind of a vicious, parasitic kind of thing. Like, oh, you make me as a shareholder more money, and then I'm going to keep electing you CEO. Doesn't like, are you making a good product? Are you treating your workers well? That's not really in the mind of a lot of shareholders. It's, are you making me money? So that's why they're issuing they're doing the stock buyback program. And one of the reasons that their stock has been falling has been because of the concern around labor costs from this new UAW contract. And the total cost of the increase, the total increase in labor cost is projected to be about $9.3 billion over the next 4.5 years, over the course of the contract. And so that sounds like a lot, $9.3 billion. And so you hear that.
For how many years, remember?
For like 4.5 years. That's the increased price. And that is the reason that the stock price is falling, remember. And that is also the reason that GM is saying that they are going to increase car prices by about $500 a pop. Which, when you consider the price of cars nowadays, $500 a pop is really not just a whole lot of money. But, that's
cars are really expensive.
Cars are ridiculously expensive, and $500, in and of itself that's a lot of money. And so that's the whole justification for this thing, right? $9.3 billion over 4.5 years. That's why you, consumer, are going to have to pay $500 more per car. That's what they're saying. And so this stock buyback program that they announced a couple of weeks ago, the company said it, and I'm reading from ABC News. The company said it plans to buy back $10 billion of its shares over the next year. 12 months. $10 billion over 12 months, which is about 1/4 of its $44 billion market value, with $6.8 billion in stock buybacks coming immediately.
Hey, 5 seconds. Just wanted to say that this is only possible because of our donors. If you want to see more of this, then consider donating yourself at tvlr.fm/donate.
A spokesman says GM expects the stock buyback to end up at about 20% of the company's outstanding shares, based on expected price increases.
Now wait a second, Jacob.
Yeah.
You're telling me that the new contract cost about $9.5 billion over 4.5 years.
Yeah, and that's why you have to pay $500 more a car.
And that's why
Right.
it costs more to buy a Ford or a GM,
Right.
or
Because the workers are greedy.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, the workers, and
they
yeah,
make too
you know
much
what?
money.
Last I checked, 10 billion was a little bit more than that.
Are you?
10's more than 9, and also
Huh.
10 over 1 year versus 9 over 4.5 years.
Interesting.
So I don't know. Just seems to me like if they're charging more, they're spending more on stock buybacks. They're spending more on that than they are on the workers and the new contract.
Yeah.
So when you hear folks say that, and you are gonna hear those folks, I know we'll hear them down here. Wherever you're at, you're gonna hear these folks complaining that because of the UAW, because of the union workers, because folks are greedy, they want to be paid too much, that's
Mhm.
why it's costing more.
Yeah.
But
And
now you know.
Right. Now you know that is bullshit. But also, even on the labor cost itself, like just in isolation, okay, like now take out of your mind the stock buyback plan. They're planning to spend more money in 1 year on stock buybacks than they're paying in increased labor costs over 4.5 years. Okay, just forget about that for a second. The concern in isolation, is that a lot of money? $9.3 billion over 4.5 years, increase in labor costs. Is that a lot of money? That's what the company will tell the consumers, and when they're doing public-facing press releases. But on shareholder calls, that's not what they're saying. On a shareholder call, CEO of GM, Mary Barra, said the new labor contracts were higher than the company expected, yes, but not significantly. So what she's saying to her shareholders is like, yeah, it's a little bit more than we expected, but it's not really that much. It's negligible. It's not really a big deal how much more money that we're going to be spending over the next 4.5 years. This is,
Which is quite starkly different from how she was talking just a few weeks ago during the strike, right?
Right. Absolutely, total ghoul behavior from these people. And from the class of people that are going to be repeating this stuff about you having to pay $500 more per car because of the workers. Because there are some people, like I think probably, the radio hosts on local stations, they fall into a class of people that they just don't know anything, right? Like we've talked to one person who, he didn't know what right to work was. He hadn't heard of the McKay doctrine. He didn't think that you could fire striking workers. Like some people are just totally clueless, and they see something on the news and it kind of fits their narrative about workers bad. Workers make too much money. Workers greedy, unions bad. They see that something that fits that narrative and they just run with it, and they don't do any investigation, and they don't feel any need to do any investigation, and so they don't. And they just run with it, and they don't know any better. But there is another class of people who follow this kind of stuff and continue to parrot this company propaganda that are just liars, right? And among that class of people is the executive class at these companies, because they know these numbers, obviously. And yet, a couple of weeks ago, like Adam said, they were running around like chickens with their heads cut off, talking about how much the UAW is asking for and how it's unreasonable and how it would, totally destroy the company. And now they're saying the increased labor costs are not much higher than expectations.
Right. Oh, and here's another thing about this kind of talking point, because we encounter it so much, and it's like, okay, you're complaining that they're making more money, but out of the other side of your mouth, you're always talking about making more money. Like, that's what drives you in life.
Right.
Because, frankly, a lot of the people who say this kind of stuff, that's what drives them, making more money. That's what they care about, right? A lot of times it's small business owners that are saying these kind of arguments.
Yeah.
They are about making more money. Why do you have a grudge against these auto workers? They figured out a way to make more money.
Right.
That's what you've devoted your entire life to. It's why you don't work. You employ other people to work for you because you want more money.
Right.
And you figured out that that's the way for you to get more money. Well, they have figured out that collective action and collective organization is a way for them to get more money.
Right.
Why are you hating?
Yeah. Yeah. It's terrible. It's awful. It should make you mad. It should make you mad. You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project, and you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.